Hello everyone and welcome back. In this video we're gonna continue working on our Three.js series, and we've been trying to create something like this that I have in my portfolio website. We've done the object animation, something like this, and then we're gonna work our way towards basically creating this kind of animation, kind of like an object explosion or something. I mouse click, and I think this is gonna be a two-part video. In part one I will talk about, which is in this video, I'm gonna talk about particles in general, and then in the next video, part two, I'm gonna talk about how we can do this animation of like the explosion. Before we get started, if you're new to this channel, please make sure to hit the subscribe button below, and don't forget to also turn the notification bells on so you're the first to know when I publish new videos. First thing we're gonna do is go to this GitHub repo here. This is the final code for the previous video that I did, and make sure to select the final branch here. I'll put a link to this repo in the description box of this video, and once you do that, you can basically click code here and download or clone this project, and then you can open it in your IDE of choice. Here I have my VS Code open, and first thing you would need to do is to do npm install to get all packages, and then once you do that, I've already done that, you will do npm start to run the dev server. And by the way, if you guys don't know what the folders in this project are, the files folders, just go back, check out my previous videos, and I will post links to those videos throughout this video on top right corner. And you can also go ahead and check out the channel. Actually, everything is there. I've got playlists, and you can find any video that you want easily there. Okay, so we have our server running. Let's go to localhost 3000, and as previously we've seen here, we have our home page. We are going to work on ThreeJs page, so let's go there, and this is what we had at the end of previous video. So if you hover over, you'll see this kind of like cool hover effect here, and the object is also rotating as we had said it in the previous lecture. Okay, so let's start talking about particles, and the first thing we're gonna do, actually go to ThreeJs website. Particles are basically points, and you can create those like points using like this code example that we have here on the ThreeJs website. Again, I'll put a link to all these web pages that I'll show you in this video in the description box of this video, so don't worry about the links. What I'm gonna do, I basically will copy the whole thing, and what we're gonna do is to go ahead and inside our constructor. So I should probably mention that we are working in our app folder, which is where all our front-end JavaScript is. And for Three.js stuff, we have this index.js inside canvas folder, inside Three.js folder, and that's what we are working. This is responsible for all the ThreeJs stuff that we're doing here, in addition to the shaders that we have been using for like the animation, the hover effect, and all those things. So let's go ahead in this index.js file and add a new function. We're gonna call it create particles, and then we're gonna basically add that function here. Again, I'm basically copying this code here. I'm making a few changes. So what I've done, I have like the vertices there, and then just like change the geometry to like this dot particles geometry, and then for my material I have this dot particles dot material. And let's look at this code a little bit more closely. So we have an array of vertices, and we are going through a for loop that's gonna go for like 10,000 iterations, and each iteration we are defining an x, y, and z, and pushing those three values inside our vertices. And let's see what our x, y, and z are. So we're using three.math here, and if we go check out the math utils section, just you can search in the documentation math utils and you'll find this. And if you scroll down here, you should be able to see rand float spread, which we have here, and that means it's gonna return like a random float in the interval of, in our case, -1000 to +1000. So since we have 2000 here, it's gonna be from -1000 to 1000, and we're doing the same thing for y and z as well. So we'll have three float numbers that are each random numbers basically in this interval in the basically between -1000 and 1000. And then what we are doing here, we're just like defining a buffer geometry. We're not for our like particle geometry, we are not assigning like any like sphere geometry or I don't know box geometry, anything like that. And then since we haven't defined like a ThreeJs pre-existing geometry kind of thing, just a general buffer geometry, we're gonna actually assign the position value of each vertex in the geometry. And that's why we got these x, y, and z's, because we wanted to have like define the position value for our particle geometry ourselves. And if you guys wonder what this position is, remember in like vertex shader we have this position, and this is actually an attribute that is already like defined. ThreeJs is giving us this position value by default, without us having to do like declare an attribute of float, or actually not float, it's a vec3 position, because we have x, y, and z. And if we had used, for example, like a sphere geometry, we would have like each vertex, like sphere buffer geometry here, we would have the vertices, and then like that position of each vertex was actually known. But here we're just using buffer geometry, so we have to kind of like set the position here, and we're gonna use a float32 buffer attribute. We talked about it in the previous video, but basically it is a what we can do with this is that we have 10,000 different basically position values which contain x, y, and z from this loop here, and then we are saying assign those 10,000 different positions, like different vertices, to the position value, and make sure each position value gets 3 of those, since we need x, y, and z for each position. So if I have like the first 3 numbers are like I don't know, negative 1, 2, and 3, then those first are gonna be x, y, and z for the first vertex, and then the next 3 are gonna be x, y, and z for the second vertex, and so on. So that's what we are doing here. We are defining each position of us has 3 values because we know it's a vec3, and then we are getting like those 3 values from the x, y, and z that we're pushing here. So that way we have the position set up, and then for the material we can use points material, which is what we saw here, basically what we've been talking about, and that's just like a type of material that we can assign color and size for the points. And finally we need to define our objects, our points, and that's how we basically put together our geometry and material, and then we'll make sure we add that to our scene. So if I save this right now, we're gonna see basically so many particles all over the place here, and it's like some like stars, and like if imagine this is like a planet, and these are our stars there. And if you remember, for the camera position we have right now 0, 0, and 4, and our xyz's for the position of these vertices are like from negative 1000 to positive 1000. So they're like all over the place, and also outside this camera. And what we can do, I'm gonna actually change the names to stars geometry, just because that makes sense now. These are like some kind of stars, and change the particles geometry that we had, change them to stars geometry, and then particles material also to stars material here. And then also probably change points to stars, so we have better names for these guys. And I'm just gonna copy, save it, and we still have to see the same thing, nothing special, we just change some names there. And then the next thing I'm gonna do, I'm actually going to add back our orbit controls, because I want to like kind of like zoom in and out in the scene and see different objects. So we'll import our orbit controls from the ThreeJs package, and then the next thing I'm gonna do, I will add my controls, this does dot controls here, and then enable dampen equal to true. If you don't know what these are, I'll share a link on the top right corner to our original introduction to ThreeJs video that I published, and you guys make sure go ahead and check that out. And then of course we need to add the controls update in our update function, and let's save it, and let's go back and take a look. Just zoom in and out, see what we have here. So this is like our original position of the camera, and then like we can zoom in and out, and you see like probably at this point ish our, let's see, check out our camera. Yeah, so we had the far and near. Our near was 0.1 and far is 1,000. So once we hit that 1,000 unit away from like our objects, we're gonna lose them in the scene. They're not gonna be rendered anymore. So probably right about now here, that's where we're hitting that threshold. But as you zoom in, you can see like the this our planet shows up and all the stars as well. Feel free to play with the near and far value for this perspective camera. And also we currently have a sphere buffer geometry of radius 1, so you might want to make it also larger, because like I said, these stars go from like -1,000 to 1,000. So you'll see more like you can like explore it and see what you can basically find there. And the next thing I'm gonna do, I'm going to actually also change the create particles to create stars here, change the name, and then I need to change the geometries that I have here. Let's see, the geometry that I have defined inside my constructor, and the sphere geometry that we defined in the previous video. And just I'm going to change the name, and then I'm gonna call it this plane geometry, and then I'm gonna update wherever I've used it here, and then for the set attribute there, and also in my 3.mesh, because I'm going to show you guys another way that you can actually add particles to your scene. And I'm gonna use the this plane geometry to do that. So I'm gonna create another function here, create sphere particles we call it, because I'm gonna use the vertices in my just like plane geometry, and just show like particles or points on those vertices. So let's create it, and this is the function here. I just created it right under create stars here. So what's gonna happen, we still have our same 3 points material as we had before for our stars. And this time for my particles, for the 3 points, instead of giving this star geometry here that we define using the random numbers, we're gonna use the plane geometry. And what's gonna happen is basically it's gonna use the vertices of the plane geometry to show our particles. And then we can add the particles. Let's save and see what just we did. So it's gonna use the vertices for that to actually to position the particles. So you can see them here right there. If let's actually get rid of this sphere geometry for a moment. Just here this scene.add this object up here in the constructor that we had. Just comment that out so we can see those particles like more clearly. Okay, so right here, so as you can see here, we have all these particles here, and that's where our vertices were. So if we go back and check out our buffer, sphere buffer geometry, we had a 50 by 50 segmentation on like height and width, and that's basically here. Like if you look at the ThreeJs website, if I show you here, so these are width segments. As you can see, I'm increasing them, and then we have our height segments, and so we have 50 by 50 of these, and that's what we also see here. So all those vertices are where these width and height segments kind of like cross each other. Now if I change this to, for example, 100 and 100, we will be seeing more particles right there, because now we have more segmentation, we have more like cross points there. Right here you can see like we have many more, and if you like increase it to like too high of a value, then obviously that might not be really good for GPU, especially since that sphere geometry is also being like animated on hover. I'll show you in a second, but like when we add all those 500 by 500 width and height segments, it's kind of like we actually are having like too many of those single dots that, and they kind of like are too close to each other, and they basically form our sphere geometry, as in like we are just using the actual geometry instead of the particles. So when I said like this might be a little hard on GPU and overall like your browser, if I add this object back to my scene, and remember the object was also actually this the geometry for that object is this plane geometry. So we have now so many points there. If I do the hover, you'll see like this kind of hover effect, and it's actually really kind of cool. But as you may feel, my browser is kind of like laggy also, because that's like too many particles, and it's kind of makes it slow. So what we had before, if we go back to 50 and just notice the difference, you saw all those 500 by 500, and now we have like 50 here, which is like this. So much smoother, because we don't have like so many particles or vertices there anymore. Okay, so this is a basic introduction to ThreeJs particles, and in the next video I'm going to expand on this, and we're gonna try to do a kind of like click effect on the object that we have here, and create something like what I showed you originally in this video initially, like this. And so keep an eye out. I should be able to post that one as well in the next few days. So if you found this video helpful, make sure to hit the like button below, and again, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and turn the notification bell on. Like I said, I will be creating more videos, and I want you guys to be aware of that, and then turning on the notification bell will help you. So yeah, thanks a lot for watching this video, and I'll talk to you guys soon.